Hi Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. I'm Susan, your intuitive, and this is your tarot and astrology reading for the month of July and Cancer season or Cancer season. So let's get right into your reading. I have also lots of notes for you. This month, your reading is Soul Cleanse. And Emperor represents Aries and Mars. We'll get into both of those. And for your Sagittarius risings, Aries is your 5th house. Saturn and Neptune will be going retrograde in this house of romance, creativity, pleasure. That one's the most important one here, because you have many pleasures, but this is the one that you experience with yourself when you engage with another. And I don't mean this is a sex house as well, and it could mean that, but it's just your experience for pleasure and romance, and what your kind of romance is, like so this is allowing your ability to be more emotionally secure with a revelation that comes through an experience of more pleasure to some capacity with another, and to hearing words and feelings be expressed in a way where you can actually be receptive, that you're no longer judging nor cringing nor whatever it is that made you feel separated from experiencing the pleasure of romance in the way that you're meant to experience it in connection with another. This connects to yourself, and it reveals to you something somewhere in your mind where ego lies, and it's been easier to maybe feel or curate a romantic or curate an experience. And yes, you're someone who allows for the experience to be had, but what happens when it's just a real moment, regardless of what you look like, what it looks like? I don't think, this is something that's necessarily talked enough about with you, but now that it's come up, it's causing you to take a look at your capacity for this not on a day-to-day. Sorry, I just have like a hair. And your ability to recognize how, if you've perhaps been avoiding it, or it's something that you find there's a lot of self-sabotage or a lot of repetitive patterns, it's really important to check in with yourself and ask your body, where it might be holding access to more pleasure, because what happens is the avoidance of feeling through the discomfort can actually cause, mental constraint. So make sure you're taking care of your mind, especially if you need to process more emotions. It's this connection with your femininity and your ego, and the strength that you have. Mercury is in Leo right now, and that is in your 9th house of the way you think, philosophy, astrology, even publishing, religion, higher learning. Mercury here for Sag rising is communicating to you that you have this connection to the strength of your mind and your mentality that connects to your heart, but the discomfort of understanding how this has probably caused you to overcompensate with your armor at times, meaning being vulnerable can feel hurtful, painful, disruptive, uncomfortable. And now your heart is finally in a space where you feel safe enough to process. There's something where you feel something changes, where you realize what you need to see about yourself in this way, in order for you to take control and allow yourself to experience and regulate, or maybe even vocalize it for some of you, that actually speaking up about it in a way where it's like, yes, it's funny, but your pain isn't funny. Sagittarius. I know we like to cope with laughing. I know laughing's important. I know what you've been through can be almost like, the comments like, oh, well, this. And it's like, with the right people, because they understand, it's like, of course. But then when we finally get to the healing, where we acknowledge that in moments, we have to recognize how deep that goes and how important it is to actually be acknowledged, loved, given compassion to. And then, yeah, for sure, laugh and joke about it. But right now, just knowing your pain is not funny. That pain isn't always pleasure. It's about the control that remains around this area, especially in your mind, that I don't think, if you're watching for a Sagittarius, you often associate with them. But there is. And that comes out. And it just needs compassion, and it needs love. It needs to be cared for in the right person, or accepting yourself and being realized by another, being accepted by another, being seen and really heard by another is healing. More Leo cards, more pleasure cards, more child cards. This may relate to that part of yourself that wherever you feel blocked from expanding. You're being really exposed to this right now, especially through the way that you go about your life, 9th house things. But even if you're not a Sag rising, it's about experiencing and the enjoyment of not always, like, being in so much control of the environment and so much control of the timing, allowing for yourself to really have that time, really be there, be present in your experience. Where is it that maybe you borderline with nostalgia? Where does it actually bring you positive, or where can the negative be transformed into the positive? I know that you're able to sit with the journey, but sometimes what I've realized is it's just going to set something off inside of you, which is why we need discipline and restriction, which Saturn going retrograde in your 5th house in the place of pleasure is going to have you learn about this. Discipline, restriction in certain ways that allows pleasure to be had, not so much in the head, or places where you've intellectualized shame, perhaps, and now you're being exposed to where that attaches to your thoughts and your beliefs about the world and what you're learning about yourself. You're also experiencing the world differently. And this could be through a relationship with an Aries or a Leo, especially Leo, heavy Leo energy. But really this could be about like the deeper compassion and the level of love that you're experiencing with yourself. I think I'm really happy we're getting here, is that the most important thing right now and through this time is that you're consistently finding ways to feel pleasure and excitement with yourself in a way that's very expanding, that actually is very strong to do, to put up boundaries so that you can be happier in the long run. And it's a way that's like, yeah, to some people that will be selfish. It's very Aries too. It's the I am, it's the self. But I mean, you are actually curating your experience by even the micro choices that you make, right? So you go experience something, and depending on how you fuel yourself, this is something interesting that I've learned, is that when I would choose something against what I really wanted, to people please, or thinking I had to eat a certain way or whatever it was, I was really setting off all the alarms, or all in like the minefields, to all the triggers that made me perhaps not be as kind to myself. Now, I don't know if the food thing necessarily relates to you, Sagittarius, but taking it into context of your life. Where is it that you maybe overgive? Have you overgiven your love to people who don't know how to appreciate it? And it's not their fault, right? It's just their life. You can only ask so much, teach so much. Someone has to be willing to reciprocate. What is that teaching you? You know, for others of you, this is your creativity, is you're being exposed to how when you actually discipline yourself to a certain creative project, or even if you have a certain span of time to, maybe you're wanting to have children, that having a certain timeline or a certain rule, right, is actually expansive. Having a commitment can actually be an expansive experience and expand your ability to be joyful. Meaning, if really this is about you allowing yourself to feel more pleasure in a way that may ask you, you know, bigger questions in your life, especially if you are in a situation where you might have to make a plan. It's a great time to make a plan, you know? This is funny because I was looking at this card. This card came out after the Strength card came out. Three of Pentacles. It's important you share, knowing that people want to hear what you have to say. That could also be really important because Leo, in that 9th house, again, Sagittarius risings, but can totally relate to Moon and Sun, is that you're meant to speak about these experiences in some way, shape, or form, or express them. You're meant to create in a way where people are meant to receive, to hear what it is that you have experienced through whatever medium or modality that is. And that could even be the way that you know, make money. That could be a guide in which you make money. Because what you're being exposed to is how you learn and how you teach. And how you would also like to help teach others. I think this is really about showing your capacity and your abilities in a way, in your heart, and being more vulnerable with your heart, which is more open with perhaps your words. Too many cards just fell out, so we're going to save them for the second part, Sagittarius. The second part is on Patreon. We get deeper into the cards, and we're going to look at all the cards that just fell out as well. You can book with me one-on-one. That's in a link below. Website, payment option, scheduling link. You can find that all there. Patreon, and more to come. Leo's opposition, Aquarius. Aquarius. This is a soul cleanse. This is you letting go of whatever stubborn, where you've been too stubborn and called them boundaries when they're really restrictions to your joy. You're more disciplined to joy, what that means and how to express that from an authentic way. And that is creating, that is showing your creation, that is sharing without needing the right music at the right time, right? It just starts to happen. You know, you invite people into your energy and all of a sudden things are moving, things are shifting. If you're looking to collaborate with people or create more abundance with others, looking for another job, asking for a raise, this is a great time to be moving towards that, asking for that. Ultimately, I do feel as though this is a time where you may want to connect even deeper with yourself through help. Especially if you're someone who helps others, also doing that for yourself, where you can calm your mind You can rest in your heart a little bit more, feel safer in your heart. Even if you do feel safe, being attuned to that, right? The awareness and the practice and the sessions, whatever you do, is about really just attuning to this natural rhythm of who you are, and why it's a consistent process and conversation, and why it's so helpful. Where it is that you now need freedom. Yeah, I'm just making sure. Oh, and Uranus is going into your 7th house of partnership, which is why we talked a lot about partnership and why that came up. We will talk a lot more about that in the second part, but for right now, what I will say is that communication is extremely important for your change, for your process, for your relationships and your ability to become more intimate. Being able to take accountability, of course, is important, and actually expands your ability to love and to express and have others express and share with you. And it's really important that you acknowledge that after all these years of perhaps coping with laughter at times, or coping in a way where it downplays what you went through, those could be the blockages to feeling more joy, to expanding your creativity, to putting yourself out there, to trusting that you are worthy and deserving being who you are in any circumstance. I know you have a lot of confidence, but this is a time where if you're experiencing this cleanse of the soul, it sounds a lot more refreshing than what you actually go through, because you have to be willing to face what you've turned your back to for so long, and really see and be exposed to where your mind kept you in a reality while you've been wanting or heading towards another, where that doesn't line up with your authenticity. This could also be, for some of you, a really amazing conversation with someone where these things have been tested or limited, or these experiences that you've had, and you've now gone through what you've needed to go through to show up in a way where it doesn't have to be dramatic, it doesn't have to be anything other than an honest, loving conversation, and that's where you're coming from, and that's the boundary. So if you are giving that but you're not receiving that in return, is it enough to be in that relationship? Whether it's work, I mean, we know you probably wouldn't settle that for work, right? Would you settle that in friendships? Would you settle for that in relationships? How can communication change this, help this, or show you that the help required is to move forward, is to move on, is to say your piece and be free? Because the intuition that comes online even more, the more that you expose yourself to this, the more that you communicate, the more you also connect with those who really love you and that you enjoy spending time with, the abundance of that and the confidence that brings, you'll start to be very aware, Sagittarius. Not that you're someone who's always, I'm not going to say aware of this, but you don't care enough. It doesn't affect you as much. But you'll notice very significantly who you're meant to be around and who you're not, or who you're learning from in one way, or who you may need to take a break from, or whatever it is in your relationships, because you will start to really even more with this care for your energy and care for the time that you spend with people, which will allow you to be even more picky with your energy, regardless of how long you've known them, regardless of how much you've been through, regardless of if you really love them. It's about showing up for one another now. It's about being honest with your desire in friendship and knowing that's cool enough. And that is the journey in becoming more yourself and allowing people to show up for you the way you'd really like them to. And being vulnerable enough to be honest about it. Because your time is worth that. no less love than that. And it takes strength and it takes courage to actually step towards that intimacy with yourself and honesty. Because it doesn't have to last forever, no, but you'll see, depending on the person and the situation or the job, you'll see the lift of the energy. Like, you don't take my word for it. Whatever experience you have, if your energy shifts and you have more energy, I think that's enough. It's interesting to actually have to define your energy, and in work it's so much easier because you can like people, you can have a good time with them, but it is a job. And you definitely meet the people on your frequency that you're meant to be in, but that frequency, even in relationships, can affect. So maybe it hasn't done that so far, but now you're entering an experience where you're being really clear. It's not about what you think. It's about how that connects with how you feel about yourself in these relationships. And that's the frequency. And realizing that it's not their fault, there's no one to blame, it's just that the energy just isn't working right now, or working at this time, or you're just too busy in your shit doing your thing that you don't have time. And whoever is in your field and whoever shows up and whoever you're experiencing life with, that's all that matters. And that's the freedom of the presence, and that's where you can be really honest with yourself and others when you say, yeah, if time allows, it's accepting that journey, that process, and feeling like what it is to enjoy your own energy alone, on your own, and with others. And being very clear about that. And I think you're going to just feel so good and so invigorated by this process, even though there's a lot of fire here, that even just addressing yourself in the situation and being honest about where your ego's at in your mind, that already strengthens your capacity to communicate and the clarity it brings, because it's like it becomes, once you realize, it becomes more of like a game where then, if I express this or if this happens, then something surprising changes, and that feels good in my life right now. To believe, and I watched Alice in Wonderland recently, and Through the Looking Glass, and like that time that it's okay to believe in the impossible or miracles, and that you're in a place of actually manifesting a miracle. Yeah. All right, Sagittarius, we'll see you in the next part.